All right, now we're on Treasure Island, Chapter 33, The Fall of a Chieftain. Each of these 6 men seemed struck by a blow, but with Silver the blow passed almost instantly. His every thought had been set like a racer on that money. Now he was brought up dead, and he kept his head and changed his plan before the others had time to realize the disappointment. "Jim," he whispered, "stand by for trouble." And he passed me a double-barreled pistol. At the same time, in a few steps, he had put the hollow between us 2 and the other 5. Then he looked at me and nodded quite friendly. I was so revolted at these constant changes that I could not resist whispering, "So, you've changed sides again?" There was no time left for him to answer. The buccaneers, with oaths, began to leap into the pit and dig with their fingers. Morgan found a piece of gold and held it up. "2 guineas!" roared Mary, shaking it at Silver. "That's your 700,000 pounds, is it? You're the man for bargains, aren't you, you wooden-headed lubber?" There we stood, 2 on one side, 5 on the other, the pit between us, and nobody ready to offer the first blow. Silver never moved. He watched them, very upright on his crutch, and looked as cool as ever I saw him. He was brave. "Mates," says Mary at last, "there's 2 of them. One's the old cripple that brought us here and blundered us down to this. The other's the cub that I mean to have the heart of. Now, mates!" He was raising his arm and plainly meant to lead a charge. Then, crack, 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 3 musket shots flashed out of the thicket. Mary tumbled headfirst into the excavation. The man with the bandage spun like a top and fell dead, but still twitching, and the other 3 turned and ran for it with all their might. Before you could wink, Long John had fired 2 barrels into the struggling Mary. As the man rolled up his eyes at him in the last agony, "George," said Silver, "I reckon I settled you." At the same moment, the doctor, Gray, and Ben Gunn joined us with smoking muskets from among the nutmeg trees. "Forward!" cried the doctor. "Double quick, my lads, we must head 'em off the boats." And we set off at a great pace. The work Silver went through, leaping on his crutch till the muscles of his chest were fit to burst, was work no man ever equaled, so said the doctor. "Doctor," he hailed, "see there? No hurry." Sure enough, in a more open part of the plateau, we could see the 3 survivors still running in the same direction as they had started. We were already between them and the boats. We 4 sat down to breathe, while Long John, mopping his face, came slowly up with us. "Thank ye kindly, doctor," says he. "You came in the nick of time, I guess, for me and my Hawkins. And so it's you, Ben Gunn," he added. "I'm Ben Gunn, I am," replied the maroon, wiggling like an eel in his embarrassment. "And," he added, "how do, Mr. Silver?" Ben," murmured Silver, "to think as you've done me." The doctor sent Gray for a pickaxe left by the mutineers, and then, as we proceeded down to the boats, related what had taken place. It was a story that profoundly interested Silver, and Ben Gunn, the maroon, was the hero. And Ben Gunn, the maroon, was the hero. Ben, in his lonely wanderings about the island, had found the skeleton. It was he that stole from it. He had found the treasure, and he had dug it up. He had carried it on his back in many weary journeys, from the foot of the tall pine to a cave where it had lain stored in safety since before the arrival of the Hispaniola. The doctor had wormed the secret from Ben on the day of the attack. The next morning, when he saw the anchorage deserted, he had gone to Silver, given him the chart, which was now useless, and the stores, for Ben Gunn's cave was well supplied with salted goat's meat. Given everything to get a chance of moving in safety from the stockade to the 2-pointed hill, to be clear of malaria and keep a guard on the money. "As for you, Jim," he said, "I did what I could for those who had stood by their duty. If you are not one of these, Whose fault was it? Now that morning, finding that I was to be involved in the horrid disappointment he had prepared for the mutineers, he had run to the cave and, leaving the squire to guard the captain, had taken Gray and the Maroon and started across the island to be at hand beside the pine. When he saw that our party was ahead of him, Ben Gunn was dispatched alone to work upon the superstitions of his former shipmates. He was so successful that Gray and the doctor were in ambush before the arrival of the treasure hunters. "Ah," said Silver, "it were fortunate that I had Hawkins here. You would have let old John be cut to bits and never given it a thought." "No, not a thought," replied Dr. Livesey. And by this time we reached the gigs. The doctor with a pickaxe demolished one, and then we all got aboard the other and set out for North Inlet. This was a run of 8 or 9 miles. Silver, though he was almost killed already with fatigue means being so tired, set to an oar like the rest of us, and we were soon skimming swiftly over a smooth sea. As we passed the two-pointed hill, we could see the black mouth of Ben Gunn's cave and the squire standing by it, leaning on a musket. We waved a handkerchief and gave him 3 cheers, in which Silver joined as heartily as any. Just inside the mouth of North Inlet, we met the Hispaniola cruising by herself. The last flood had lifted her, so the tide coming up had lifted the Hispaniola, even without somebody there to steer her. She's just kind of floating on the water. And had there been much wind or a strong tide, we should never have found her, or found her stranded beyond help. As it was, though, there was little amiss, so very little has gone wrong. Another anchor was got ready and dropped in a fathom of water. So about a fathom is about 6 feet. We all pulled round again to Rum Cove, the nearest point for Ben Gunn's treasure house. Then Gray returned with the gig to the Hispaniola, where he was to pass the night on guard. At the entrance of the cave, the squire met us. To me, he was cordial, meaning he was friendly, saying nothing of my escapade. At Silver's salute, he changed color. So an escapade is where you kind of run off and do whatever you want. So he's not really saying much about the fact that Jim has left them and run about the island. He's just happy to see him. But when he sees Silver, he changes color, so he gets mad. "John Silver," he said, "you're a villain. I am told not to prosecute you. Well, then, I will not. But the dead men, sir, hang about your neck." "Thank you kindly, sir," replied Long John. "I dare you to thank me," cried the squire. "It is a gross neglect of my duty. Stand back." Because he knows that Long John Silver is a criminal, so to let him go free would be against everything that he stands for. And then we entered the cave. It was a large, airy place with a little spring and a pool of clean water overhung with ferns. The floor was sand. Before a big fire lay Captain Smollett, and in a far corner in the flickering light I beheld heaps of coin and stacks of gold bars. That was once treasure that we had come so far to seek, and that had cost already the lives of 17 men. How many it had cost in the amassing, what blood and sorrow, what good ships scuttled, what shame and lies and cruelty, perhaps no man alive could tell. Yet there were still 3 upon that island, Silver, Morgan, and Ben Gunn, who had each a share in these crimes, as each had hoped in vain to share in the reward. "Come in, Jim," said the captain. "You're a good boy, in your line, Jim, but I don't think you and me will go to sea again. Is that you, John Silver? What brings you here?" "Come back to do my duty, sir." "Ah," was all the captain said. What a supper I had that night, with all my friends round me, and what a meal it was, with Ben Gunn's salted goat, some delicacies, and a bottle of old wine from the Hispaniola. Never, I am sure, were people happier. Silver sat back, almost out of the firelight, eating heartily, even joining quietly in our laughter, the same polite, obsequious seaman of the voyage out. And obsequious just simply means to be obedient, to follow directions, to do what you're supposed to do. And then our last chapter of the book is the chapter called And Last. So this will be chapter 34 we'll read tomorrow.